A look at water scarcity in the country. That's where the focus is. The Department of Water and Sanitation has appealed to water users in dry provinces, particularly those in the inlands, to intensify their water-saving practices until the next summer rains. This as many dams in several provinces have seen a drop in their levels. Joining us now to discuss the situation is Water and Sanitation Department spokesperson Sputnik Radau. Sputnik, good evening and thank you very much for your time today. Let's start first in the Eastern Cape. Butterworth and the surrounding areas in the Muma local municipality could run out of water this coming week. Numerous reasons are cited there. It could be poor infrastructure, low rainfall, but particularly the issue of the mismanagement of funds. What is the department's immediate intervention, medium term, but also in the long term?
Thank you so much, and good evening to you and your viewers. And we incidentally, we had a meeting with the minister just yesterday, specifically to look at the issues around the Eastern Cape, with Muma included. And part of what the decision that was taken and the directive from the minister is that we need to do a stopgap intervention for the next 2 months, beginning immediately, so that we can be able to make sure that we do not get to a point where there is ultimately just no water available. That intervention would include re-looking at where our intervention that is underway has been happening and what we can be able to move around in order to make sure that we take the relief to those areas which are mostly in need. So therefore, between ourselves as the department, Amatola Water and the municipalities, we need to look at where we have supplied tanks and where the major need is right now, because not all the areas where we have supplied tanks still need to have those tanks in there. We might need to look at where we move them. But we also need to bring in more tankers, because obviously the system in that area does not have water, so we have to bring in water from other systems outside, and which are in other municipalities, to be able to bring in that kind of relief. But as you are correctly putting it, we also need to look at what we can be able to do together with the municipalities, especially in terms of failing infrastructure.
Let's look broadly in South Africa, Sputnik, and I hear what you're saying right now. These are emergency water relief measures that you're taking. Now, we've known for years, and you repeat this, you say it all the time, South Africa is a water-scarce country. We don't have the luxury of misusing our water resources. The minister last year in October already saying we are in what is called a water stress, and we need to now begin to disaster-proof South Africa for such. It doesn't seem, though, that there is movement in that direction. And if you look at what you're doing now in the Eastern Cape, that is the emergency water relief measures. If you look at what you're doing in Kwakwa, that is the emergency water relief measures. What is the long-term water supply plan to ensure that there's water security?
If you remember that Minister launched the National Water and Sanitation Master Plan in November last year that looks at that kind of long-term plan, but not just as ourselves as a department, because that's part of our normal work anyway. But we need to do that together with all of South Africa. But maybe just to be more specific in terms of Muma and Kwakwa, as you are correctly saying, and looking at some of the long-term issues that we have to look at. Correctly, the first thing is to look at our infrastructure. We know that the lower Sundays River canal broke down a while ago, and we did do a temporary refurbishment to it. We are now busy with the long-term repairs to that, which we are hoping to complete by May 2021. But obviously, we're also looking at the fact that we have to make sure that our water supply system comes into play, so that Nelson Mandela Bay can be able to continue to have water. In Kwakwa, a lot of work has been done by Citibank Water, including the refurbishing of some of the reservoirs, to make sure that where two of the water treatment plants are working. The major thing that we have to look at is the fact that we need to reduce what we call the non-revenue water, that is potable water lost due to failing infrastructure in the pipelines within the reticulation systems. That will help us to have an extra 35 to 45% of potable water saved that we can be able to put back into the system.
That's exactly it. I mean, when you make a call, for example, to people in urban areas, particularly Gauteng, and you say people of Gauteng must save water, the people of Gauteng are saying to you, Sputnik, that, well, you can't tell us to save water when it takes you 2 months to come and address a leaking water pipe. And this I say from my own personal experience, by the way.
Yes, you're correct. And that is why we have upped our interaction with municipalities even more, because we have been working with municipalities anyway. But what we are doing now is to say, we need to strictly look at the issue of what happens to the municipal infrastructure grant, what happens to the water and sanitation infrastructure grant that we avail to municipalities, because those are the grants that need to be able to assist municipalities to actually do that kind of work. So we need to be following the money and making sure that whatever we give over to municipalities, we can be able to account for to the people of South Africa, especially through the AG and the National Treasury. And those are some of the things, but also to assist those municipalities that do not have the technical capacity, where we are able to maybe deploy some of our people for certain periods so that they can be able to bring some of those issues to an end. But it's not something that we are going to be doing all the time. That is why to capacitate local municipalities is one of those issues that we are doing.
But you're very lenient, man. You're very lenient on municipalities. For example, the Machabeng situation, it didn't start at 2.5 billion. It was 100 million a couple of years ago. Now it's sitting at 2.5 billion. There's a sense and a feeling that you know that there is a cloud of some kind of corruption. The water environment is not clean, but you're very lenient with municipalities. And this is why water boards are being owed 10 billion rands right now as we speak.
You must remember that part of what we have to do, and that is the process that guides us, is that we have what we call the intergovernmental relations framework that guides us as to where how we need to be able to work together as government. And that, until and unless we have been able to exhaust all of those processes, we then have the authority, or rather the right, through the Act, to be able to take matters forward. And that is why, if you look at the case that has been finalized now against Dr. Ruth Mombati, Mombati municipality in the Northwest, it's not something that started yesterday, but we have reached the same kind of outcome, almost like what Eskom has done with some of the other municipalities, where they have gone the legal route. But the legal route is the ultimate end. What we would want to see is that even when we have agreements with these municipalities in terms of how our payment processes should happen, we need to be able to make sure that that happens. And that is why part of what we are looking at the moment is whether we can be able to have a conversation with COGTA, with National Treasury, with SALGA, to see how we can be able to make sure that those municipalities that make agreements with us on repayments actually stick to the agreement, not just put it on paper.
The other area that is not getting attention, Sputnik, as far as investing in infrastructure, right, is the issue of stormwater drainage systems that really do need attention. I mean, papers upon papers that have been written around how this flow back into the dams could actually assist us in as far as getting that water security that we need. I mean, it's not enough just to say to urban people, stop using water, because also, particularly, it's big businesses that use a lot of water. It's mines, it's farmers, it's those kind of people. It's not really people in urban areas.
We are aware of that, and one of the things that we really are happy to see is that about 2 months ago or so, 2 to 3 months ago, SALGA actually had a conversation with municipalities about that very issue of wastewater reclamation. And there is a program that they are putting together to say, how do we make sure that all this wastewater, all this water that comes from the rain that is collected through the drains and so on, we make sure that it actually goes into the water treatment system processes to to be able to augment the water that we abstract from our rivers. And that is one of the things that we are looking at, working together with SALGA, working together with municipalities, because you must remember that those kind of responsibilities of reticulation and so on are in the hands of local municipality, but we have to work together to be able to make them actually workable and attainable.
Right, for a moment, just go back with me to the Kokra situation. 200 million is what the department pledged. I think it was last year when the plan of the minister was introduced. 5,000 Jojo tanks would have been distributed at the time. They were looking at about 2,000 at that moment. Have you reached the 5,000 Jojo tanks? Because we're looking at the story right now where a family has to travel over a kilometer, and it looks like there's one Jojo tank in that whole entire community that must be accessed by everybody.
I would need to look at our figures again to be sure to give the correct information. But we have driven, and I think Sidibeng Water has done the largest part of that work, and that was from February this year when Minister was in Kwakwa. And that work is still ongoing. And remember that was what I was saying, that it also includes the issue of refurbishment and repairing of some of the infrastructure, including the reticulation infrastructure. Some of those, the locations for these tanks, by the way, we looked at those locations as per advice of the municipality, because they would be able to know the most strategic places where to put those. And that is how we've been working with them together with Sidibeng Water to be able to make sure that so far as we can be able to, we cover as much ground. But part of what we are looking is that, what we are saying is that it is not just enough to put tanks out there. Those tanks in the ultimate have got to be able to work together with the reticulation system in the municipalities to be able to make sure that there's longevity to that intervention and not just be a stopgap.
Yeah, and the people that were supposed to have been hired, 18 laborers at the time had been hired, but also there was a sense that you were welcoming those with expertise and the know-how in the community to come and be a part of the solutions. How far has that process gone?
Those processes have gone a very long way. In fact, at one point, I think, if I'm correct, the numbers went much higher than what we had initially looked at, because the minister was very clear to say that we need to be able to make sure that we bring in as many of the locals as we can. But obviously, we cannot just open the doors, as wide as anything. We need to be able to work within certain constraints, and including budgets, including making sure that we work according to the plan. And that is why we've always said that, the people of Kwakwa must be able to work together with the municipality, who is working together with Sidibeng Water, to make sure that the plans that are on the ground actually come to bear the fruit that we are looking for, and that is ultimately that the people of Kwakwa and surrounding areas must be able to access water. We are looking at the fact that some of those projects are not going to be just over a day, but I think supported by the immediate intervention, we can be able to find solutions for those people there.